Doing everything you stand for. You. Put your hands on me.
And if you gay, that's cool, but be gay and come on out and be that. Don't be in front of us and act like a straight up G, and then you get over here and you let these boys bust up your back.
Cause the money keep me alive. They wanna know why the album was late, cause I was waiting for them people to get all my paper straight.
You know what I'm saying? Can't be no lies a part of it. Everything between me and him, regardless of how we may deal with everybody else, I'm 100 with him. He 100 with me. That's the only way we gonna make it. And from the beginning, it's always been we.
The Houston rap duo Underground Kings was at the peak of its career, on the charts and on the way to a Grammy nomination, when tragedy struck in December.
UGK, also known as Underground Kings, was formed in 1987 by Chad Butler aka Pimp C and Bernard Freeman aka Bun B. The two first met in high school in Port Arthur, Texas, and quickly discovered they shared passion for hip-hop. They formed a friendship and started rapping together, eventually forming UGK and beginning to perform at local events and parties. In the early days of UGK, Pimp C served as the group's producer and primary songwriter, while Bun B handled most of the rapping duties. Bun's rap style was often described as speeding train delivery, with lyrics that felt sanded down and coded by heavy lacquer. They recorded their first demo tapes in the late 1980s, which began to circulate in the South Texas hip-hop scene. Their first EP was called The Southern Way, and it was released on April 26, 1992. It was distributed by local record label Big Time Records and was only available as an audio cassette. The tape helped them gain regional fame and even caught the attention of Jive Records. They really liked what they heard, and this quickly landed them a 5-album record deal. Their major debut album, Too Hard to Swallow, was released later the same year, on November 10th. While it features several new recordings, it also features several songs that had been culled from Southern Way. However, several songs that had been intended to be included on the album were excised at the last minute, apparently due to their overly explicit content. 5 of these songs would surface 2 months before Too Hard to Swallow's release on an EP distributed by Big Time Records. Appropriately enough, the EP was called Banned. Despite the initial setback and censorship faced by UGK, they continued to hone their craft and put in the hard work to make a name for themselves in the industry. But little did they know that their breakthrough album Super Tight was just around the corner, ready to launch them into the mainstream and cement their status as a Southern rap legends. UGK's rise to fame in the 1990s was cemented with the release of their hit album, Super Tight, on August 30th, 1994. The success of the album's singles helped establish the group as a major force in Southern hip-hop and allowed them to expand their fanbase and develop a devoted following. The singles Front, Back, and Side to Side and Pocket Full of Stones
I'm back in this bitch with another pocket full of fucking stones.
gained massive popularity and put UGK on the map as a force to be reckoned with in the Southern hip-hop scene. The album's impact on hip-hop made them one of the most respected and influential groups and also helped them to pave the way for other artists from the South to gain recognition. After the success of their Super Tight album, UGK continued to build on their growth with several more albums and hit singles. 2 years later, in 1996, they released an album Ridin Dirty. It was their third studio album, and despite having no music videos or official singles, the album managed to become their best-selling album of all time. It peaked at number 15, sold 70,000 copies in its first week, and overall, over 850,000 units to date. The album received widespread critical acclaim and is widely considered a classic in Southern hip-hop. The album showcased the group's unique blend of hard-hitting beats, smooth flows, and raw, unvarnished lyrics.
I walk around with my mind blown in my own fucking zone, cause one day you're here, the next day you're gone.
This would also be UGK's last album for the time being, as they went on a short hiatus not long afterward. While they took a break, this doesn't mean they only enjoyed their lavish lifestyle and drank champagne. In 2000s, after a 4-year break, UGK made a high-profile guest appearance on Jay-Z's smash hit, Big Pimpin', and also appeared on another classic, 3 6 Mafia's Sippin' on Some Syrup.
I got the red permissive seed, thick orange and yellow sauce.
Both of these collaborations greatly increased their reputation worldwide and helped them to fuel anticipation for their next project. They also did countless shows, interviews, and guest appearances during this time. From 1996 to 2001, they also appeared alongside rappers like Scarface, C Murder, Master P, Fiend, previously mentioned Jay-Z, Outkast, Ludacris, and more. 5 years after their last album, on November 13, 2001, UGK released their 4th studio album, Dirty Money. While the group gathered a lot of attention over the past 5 years, the album wasn't as successful as Jive Records anticipated. It peaked at number 19 on Billboard 200 and sold a little over 500,000 units. Don't get me wrong, 500,000 is a lot, but they probably doubled or even tripled their fame over the course of 5 years since their previous album, but still sold 200,000 copies less. Regardless, the album was still a success, but this was just the beginning of their story, as they would soon face new challenges that would test the strength of the group and their music. The story of Pimp C's arrest starts on December 16, 2000. Chad Butler was arrested after allegedly holding a woman, Lakira Hulett, at gunpoint and threatening to shoot her after a confrontation in a shoe store. The story goes that Chad and his mom, Mama Wes, decided to go to the Sharpstown Mall in Houston, Texas. Chad parked his black Lincoln Navigator into a handicapped space near the entrance, and before leaving the car, he took his 9mm pistol and stuck it in his waistband. At the time, he felt the pressure to live up to the persona he embodied on Big Pimpin'. He and his mom entered the mall and went to a shoe store. Soon, to nobody's surprise, people started to recognize the man in the mink. Lakira Hulett, with 3 of her friends, Chaka Prince, Dooley Anderson, and Shamika Hawkins, was also present at the shop, trying on some shoes. One of her friends, Chaka Prince, saw Pimp C and said, "Look at the guy in the mink, I know him from somewhere." Suddenly it clicked that she'd seen him in a music video and said, "That's Pimp C." While talking on the phone with Bun B, Chad greeted the store manager Kevin Nesby with a handshake and asked him if he had size 11 Timberlands. Lakira leaned towards her friend Chaka and said, "Don't pay him no mind, act like you don't know him." Dooley and another male friend were at the register paying for their shoes. Lakira approached them and started to get into a short spat with the store clerk, who wouldn't allow her to exchange some shoes. Making conversation, the store clerk gestured towards Chad and asked the ladies if they knew who he was. "No," Lakira snapped. "This is Pimp C," the manager Nesby told her. "You don't know Pimp C? Who the f is Pimp C?" Lakira snorted. "The guy from UGK," Nesby said. "Oh, I don't listen to them all," Lakira said. Chad, who had his back turned to the other customers, heard the remark behind him. He told Bun B, "Hey man, let me call you back," and turned around to face Lakira. "Hey man, why you gotta talk that with my name in your mouth? You must don't watch videos. You never heard of Big Pimpin' with Jay-Z?" Nesby chimed in. "Pimp C," Lakira said. "I don't know no Pimp C or UGK." Chad's demeanor, which had first been lighthearted, quickly turned dark. "You don't know UGK? You must have been in jail or something," he snapped loudly. Lakira snapped back louder by saying, "It ain't like you Master P." At this point, Chad lost his temper and let loose with a flurry of obscenities. Nesby rushed out from behind the cash register and stood between the two as they threw insults at each other. He faced Chad and grabbed both of his arms. He said, "Calm down, she isn't worth it." Lakira's friends, which were at the register, finished paying for their shoes and tried to get her to leave as well. "Let's go," her friends insisted. As Lakira and her friends started backing away, still yelling insults in Chad's direction, Chad stepped towards her. Lakira, who stood 5'9" and 160 pounds, wasn't a small woman, and as she reached inside her purse, Chad thought she was reaching for a weapon. He instinctively lifted his jacket to show her that he had one too, and said, "Freeze, don't move no more." Chad glanced at the 2 men who were with Lakira. One of them threw his hands up to indicate surrender. He said, "Man, we don't want it." Chad responded, "I don't want it either. You'll need to back up out the store. This not funny no more." As they left the store headed in different directions, Chad spun one last bit and at Lakira. While it may seem that the story ends there, unfortunately, it's far from over. On her way out, Lakira passed by a police officer at the security desk. He first looked skeptical when Lakira told him that a man had pulled a gun on her. She started yelling louder and louder, insisting that a man had put a gun in her side and threatened to kill her. The officer put out an alert over the radio for an armed suspect in a mink coat. Another officer nearby spotted Chad leaving out the north exit, and both officers took off running. A customer who had observed the exchange shook his head at Lakira, telling her it was some stupid to tell the police. Nesby was also upset with Lakira. She not only exaggerated the whole situation, but also started it. In the parking lot, Chad was soon surrounded by 8 police officers, all circling his vehicle with their weapons drawn and barking out commands. Chad ignored their orders to get on the ground and show his hands, instead opening the driver's side door. He barely got his right foot inside when 2 police officers rushed him and forced him to the ground. He later told Feds magazine, "After the cop handcuffed me, 4 more officers came running up and slammed me down to the ground. They started kicking me and hitting me." Police slammed his head against the car and pushed his head onto the concrete. The police report acknowledged that Chad was arrested to the ground with much resistance, claiming that he had become aggressive and combative and that the only force necessary was used to subdue him. As police brought Chad back inside in handcuffs, Lakira was exiting the mall. Chad started yelling at her, "I'm gonna kill you." He was growing more and more irate, and as police struggled to contain him, they smashed his head against a glass doorway, which knocked him nearly unconscious. With Chad in custody and nearly incapacitated, police took statements from Lakira and her friends. Lakira's last name was spelled incorrectly. Instead of double T, it was spelled with double L, which was likely intentional, given her documented history of giving police incorrect information to avoid revealing her own criminal past. Lakira told police she wanted to press charges, claiming that Chad stuck a gun in her side and threatened her by saying, "I will shoot you, I will kill you, and I will slap you." Her friend Chaka also claimed that Chad threatened her by saying, "I'll shoot you," before pulling out the gun and sticking it in Lakira's side. According to the police report, the male friend Dooley told the police that Chad pulled a pistol on his little sister Lakira and called her all kinds of words. However, Lakira's other friend, Shamika, told police she never seen Chad pull out a gun. The store manager Kevin Nesby also disputed Lakira's version, telling police that Lakira was the one who started the whole argument by talking very ghetto, while Pimp C was just staying calm. If she had not jumped on the man, this would have never started. The police report also claimed that Chad had a prior arrest record for dangerous drugs and assault. When he finally regained consciousness inside the security office, Chad's head was throbbing. He opened his eyes to see a small, wrinkled plastic baggie with less than a gram of cocaine dangling in his face. "What is this?" the officer holding it asked. "I don't know, cause that can't be mine," Chad responded. "If it was mine, it would be in a big, odd, Crown Royal bag." Police also found a quarter-ounce of weed, but he did confess that it belonged to him. Chad was transported to the central jail and was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He posted a $10,000 bond the next morning and was let free. Now, we're back to 2001. After pleading no contest and admitting to having a gun at the scene, he initially was sentenced to probation. They released their album Dirty Money after a 5-year break and continued to live their lives as superstars up until January 2002, when Pimp C gets arrested again and was sent back to prison after failing to report to his probation officer on several occasions, failing to keep up with his community service hours, refusing to pay outstanding court fees, as well as testing positive twice for weed. Pimp C's trial began on August 5, 2002. After so many probation violations and pleading guilty to the incident, the facts of what actually happened at the Sharpstown Mall were irrelevant. The question wasn't whether he committed the crime, but how long he should be punished for it. His mother, Mama West, remembers the day as the biggest mockery of justice. The state began by stating their case for previously mentioned probation violations. Chad admitted that these things were true and gave up his right to have a formal hearing. Now, Pimp C was being sentenced on the original charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a second-degree felony punishable by up to 20 years in prison. Chad's lawyers decided to go with a plan to paint him as a person who struggles with drugs and mental health problems. Their defense was that when Pimp C pulled out a gun on a girl, he was on drugs, self-medicating from his depression in a manic state. They wanted to get Pimp C back on parole and do SAFP, which stands for Substance Abuse Felony Punishment. His lawyers argued that sending Pimp C to jail would do him no good, and he would greatly benefit if he took a break from music and instead was sent to rehab. While it looked like a good defense on paper, Judge wasn't buying it. He thought that Pimp C had more than enough chances to prove them wrong. He had 2 chances when he was on parole, but failed on both occasions. He argued that there is no way to be sure that if he gets out on parole for the 4th time, he won't fall into his old ways of doing drugs or drawing guns on civilians. The judge finally ended the trial with a closing statement. "I think the problem with that argument is just about him. It's about time to focus on the rest of us. He gets released and he screws up over and over and over again. He gets released on bond, he screws up again. He gets released, he smokes dope. He doesn't do his community service. Person after person has come in here, and we have treated him differently than anybody else. He took a gun into a mall with his cocaine and pulled it on a girl. He pleaded guilty, he was given a break. He's come back here. This is his 3rd time. It's not about him anymore. I think he's blown all of his chances. People don't get that many chances. They shouldn't." On August 5, 2002, at approximately 9:50 a.m., Judge sentenced Chad Butler to 8 years in prison. His arrest and sentencing were widely protested by the hip-hop community, who along with Bun B, immediately initiated a Free Pimp C campaign. This also meant that Bun B was the only one left to carry on UGK name. Throughout the time of Pimp C's incarceration, Bun B made numerous guest appearances on songs by other rappers, every time either mentioning Pimp C or featuring Free Pimp C or Free the Pimp chant.
If you miss Pimp C, throw up your deuces in your tray.
Many of UGK's peers did the same and mentioned Pimp C in their own songs with or without Bun B. Jive Records released a Best of UGK album, as well as Chopped and Screwed remix album. Pimp C's incarceration also meant that it was necessary for both members to start their solo careers. As I've mentioned, Bun B was carrying on the UGK's legacy as a solo artist, continuing to tour and perform under the UGK name. Performing the same songs without new releases typically doesn't last that long before fans started to demand for something new. On March 1st, 2005, Rap-A-Lot Records released Pimp C's solo debut called Sweet James Jones Stories, which peaked at number 50 on the US Billboard 200 and 7th on US Top R&B/Hip Hop album chart. Bun B later released his own studio album called Trill on October 18th, 2005. The album opened at number 6 on the Billboard Hot 200 and peaked at number 1 on Billboard's Top R&B/Hip Hop album chart. On December 30th, 2005, Pimp C was released from prison and was to be on parole until December 2009. After 3 years in prison, he was more than happy to be back out and started working on his next album. On July 25th, 2006, he released his first post-incarceration album, titled Pimpalation. The production was handled by several record producers, including Mr. Lee, man who produced such platinum albums like Scarface's My Homies and Tupac's Still I Rise, Manny Fresh, legendary Cash Money producer, and even the man himself, Mike Dean. Apart from the incredible producers list, the album also had guest performances from people like 8ball and MGG, Big Mike, of course, Bun B, Chamillionaire, Jay Prince, Scarface, Willie D, and even Lil Boosie, or now known as Boosie Badass. The album debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and later was certified gold. Finally, Pimp C was a free man, or at least not behind bars. The group wasted no time, and on August 7, 2007, the group released their 5th studio album, the self-titled Underground Kings. It was a double album, containing 26 tracks and spanning 2 discs. The features on this album were insane. It featured guests like Talib Kweli, Too Short, Rick Ross, 3 6 Mafia, Slim Thug, Outkast, and hip-hop legends such as Kool G Rap and Big Daddy Kane on a track titled Next Up. The album also features some international rappers like British rapper Dizzy Rascal on the track Two Types of following their guest appearance on Rascal's own album, Maths Plus English. The album featured production by DJ Paul, Juicy J, Swiss Beats, The Runners, Lil Jon, Jazzy Fa, fellow Texas legend Scarface, and the man who produced a lot or even majority of their tracks, the man himself, Pimp C. The fans waited for this album for so long, and best believe, they loved every single second of it. The album got positive reception both commercially and critically. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 200 album charts, becoming their first number 1 album and probably their most recognizable song, International Players Anthem.
These girls are smart, 3 stacks, these girls are smart.
Which featured Outkast, became the group's only single to chart on the Billboard Hot 100 pop charts, where it peaked at number 70. After so many ups and downs, the group was finally back on their feet, stronger than ever. With the release of Underground Kings and its overwhelming success, it seemed as though UGK's career was only going upwards. However, amidst all of the celebration and success, tragedy was looming on the horizon. In the coming months, something drastic would happen that would change everything for the group and its fans. In early December 2007, Butler had been staying at the Mondrian Hotel in West Hollywood, California, where he had been working on new music and performing with Too Short. On the morning of December 4th, 2007, he was scheduled to fly back home, where his wife was waiting with his cousin Ed at the airport to pick him up. After not hearing from him in the morning of the scheduled flight, his wife called the hotel and requested that they check on him. Hotel staff came up to his room and found Pimp C unresponsive. Shortly thereafter, he was pronounced dead. He was only 33 years old. Cause of death allegedly was ruled to be accidental, attributed to the effects of Butler's heavy usage of purple drang, also known as lean, a combination of codeine and promethazine in conjunction with his pre-existing condition of sleep apnea.
That's when Chad Butler, known as Pimp C, died in a Los Angeles hotel room. The turnout at his funeral in Port Arthur showed just how much he was loved and admired in this area. Just this week, the LA County Coroner's Office ruled the rapper's death accidental and attributed it to a combination of a sleep disorder called apnea, and prescription-strength cough syrup.
According to DJ Paul of 3 6 Mafia, he got a call from Pimp's manager, Rick Martin, who saw Pimp C's body in the hotel room, saying he was laying down like he was praying, but there was blood around like he was shot. They thought he was shot in the head, but they didn't know what the hell happened because there was blood everywhere. They thought he was shot. He was knelt down like he was praying, and the candles were all the way burned down, so they knew probably been dead for a day or so because he always lit those candles to sleep. It was such a sad day in hip-hop. Soon, rappers started paying their respects to the late Pimp C. Bun B released several songs in tribute to Pimp C, including You're Everything, Gone Too Soon, and Pop It for Pimp. Jay-Z paid respects in his 2007 album American Gangster. He also wrote an open letter in which he called Pimp C a true legend and an inspiration to many. In 2008, Bun B stated in an interview that there would be one last UGK album before he permanently becomes a solo act. Yeah, we're still putting together the last UGK record too, because there's a lot of music that we've already recorded for it, said Bun B. I think the album itself is going to be a little bit weird. Their sixth and final studio album was released on March 31st, 2009, called UGK for Life. UGK has left a lasting impact on the world of hip-hop. Without a distinctive blend of southern beats, raw lyrics, and undeniable chemistry, Pimp C and Bun B created a sound and style that was uniquely their own, and that continues to influence artists today. Their albums, including classics like Super Tight and Ridin Dirty, helped them to build a devoted fan base and establish them as one of the most respected and influential groups in the southern hip-hop. They were known for their contribution to their community through charity work and activism. They used their fame and influence to bring attention to the challenges faced by their community and made an effort to improve the lives of people in their hometown. Sadly, the group's journey was cut short due to Pimp C's untimely death, but the legacy of UGK lives on to the music they left behind and the generation of artists they inspired. UGK will forever be remembered as southern rap icons, and they have solidified their place in the pantheon of hip-hop greats. Rest in peace, Pimp C.